session. And welcome everyone right now with us. Thanks. I'm delighted that you chose this session. I know there were lots of good choices, and I know some of you will be listening the recording. So welcome all of you too. First of all, obviously, I'm a big Teal fan, and I have put my virtual book, Reinventing Organizations, on my shelf there. And I read the book in the year that it was published in 2014. And, you read some of the books and you feel like, oh my God, these are the books that articulate what I felt like, what I knew in my heart. But they do such a good job that you don't want to leave the book alone ever again. So that's definitely my bedside book. I always refer to it. I love what Frederick has done before and today. So that's why I'm here. I always became an attendee. This is the first time I'm speaking. And I believe in all the principles of Teal, but I spent most of my life, as you will hear, in purpose, really in depths of purpose. But I know that if all the principles of Teal works together, then we're more resilient and adaptable in the world. And that's the topic I chose this time to speak about, because I speak about so many different topics around purpose, but because I think it's top of mind for all of us, especially after the pandemic. We as individuals and organizations want to be resilient and adaptable for everything that we're facing in the world. We know there's going to be more challenges up on the way. So we want to be more resilient, adaptable in the individual and in our organizational life. So I'm going to tell you, since they want us to be storytellers, I'm going to tell you my story of purpose, how it kept me resilient in the hardest of times. But I also want to give you examples of companies that I watch over the years that have stayed purposeful, which made them resilient as well. And at the end, I'm gonna talk to you about Turkey, the earthquake, and how even Teal principles play out there. And that's the section I call Teal is Real, because even if we don't ever speak about the principles, that's what it plays out, even in a big disaster like that. So that's just like in a nutshell what I want to do today and bring you some value. But please connect me afterwards at LinkedIn, especially. Ask me questions that you can ask today, but I'm gonna not wait until my whole talk is over. We have some questions that we're gonna explore together, like during my talk, instead of waiting for me to finish it. So hopefully that's gonna be of value to you too, because I want this to be an interactive session. So let me start with my story. I was born in Istanbul, Turkey. We call it Turkey now. It changed the name from Turkey to Turkey, by the way. And I was born into a very intellectual family. And you would probably know, when you're born to a family with lots of education, they give you that one formula. And what is that? Like, work hard, get good grades, go to good schools, and find a good job at a good company. So I took it to my heart, and it felt like it was the definition of success and happiness in life. So I found myself at IBM as my first job, And Ellen, I know there's going to be some conversations in the chat, so please let me know, because I'm not going to be able to see them all. And please, you can just tell me if there's something going on that I have to answer. So I found myself at IBM, and it was great. I was paid well. It was the years when IBM was really one of the best companies to work for. So there's nothing to complain, right? But in a couple of years, what happened to me, and I don't know really to this day where it came from, but I started asking, what is my purpose in life? Why am I working here? So I have these repetitive tasks that I do every single day. But who am I contributing to? What does that do in my world, in my country, to my clients? But at the time, it was the weirdest question to ask, believe me. So I'm going to pull this up a couple of times. So it was not cool at all moments, right? To talk about what my purpose is at work. But I had to. I just couldn't not ask that question for myself. So I found a purpose on my own about what I'm doing. It made me feel a little bit better, but it did not excite me at all. Another thing that happened to me was I was also looking at my first job, looking at the workplace, and I'm saying, everybody's like very excited to get to their Fridays, live for the weekends, and the people are older are looking forward to their retirement. It felt so weird to me, and I knew I didn't want to live like that. But questioning the status quo, like this is like at least 25 years ago, was another moment for me. Not cool at all moment. If I ever brought those things up, people were looking at me like, what? You make good money. You have a great job at a great company. Just don't be like a spoiled person and just be happy that you get a good paycheck. And I said, okay. So I did this process inside of myself more than being out loud about it, because it felt like I did not fit in this world, believe me. Now that we're talking about this in this event, so many events, is just a blessing. Thank God, like I got to see this, because I felt so alone and like I didn't belong. But to cut it short, at some point I quit my job in my corporate work. Again, now a lot of people are leaving their corporate jobs, but at the time people lived like worked in the same company, they retired from the same company. So again, I have so many of these not cool at all moments for my family, for my friends, all the people at work, like, what are you doing? How can you leave a job like that? But I knew it was the natural thing to do. I just wasn't like trying to be brave or anything. I knew I couldn't stand there anymore. Not that it was a bad company. It's just like it didn't make me excited. I didn't find fulfillment in it. So I just dropped it. And then I also like left my country to come and live in the United States. Now a lot of people, unfortunately, with lots of things happening in Turkey, are leaving every day. But at the moment, again, a not so cool moment at the time, I left my family and everything I know and came to the United States to live. And I realized that I had so many identities built up in me. I was like living in Istanbul. I graduated from the best college. I was working for IBM. I had a good title. All of them just crumbled up around me when I came to the United States. I became certainly a nobody, really. Nothing that I did before really mattered here. So another journey for me was like, okay, who am I without my titles? Who am I without any of my roles, right? Like, how can I find who I am so that I can stay strong if all of them goes away? And it was by choice that I lost all my identity, but I wanted to stay strong and find who I am without any of that. So that became my journey. And when I look at it in hindsight, definitely not at the time, but when I look at hindsight, just to drop my job and come and live in a different place on earth started my resilience story. Because all those moments that I did something that people did not approve, but felt good to me because I felt like I have to do it, started my resilience story. And also, of course, my adaptability, because now I was in another environment trying to adapt to what works here, what's the culture here, who am I going to be here. So I started different jobs. I did a lot of different work, but all the time, my curiosity was around, okay, why is this person more motivated than me? Why is this person more like frustrated at work? Or maybe in the business sense, I was looking at some companies who did great about making their people happy, and some people were making people very miserable. So if you're still in the quest to find out what you want to do, like I think I would really pay attention to those natural curiosities that you have. So I carried that along. To cut the story short again, I found a career counselor at some point because those questions never left me. And she helped me a lot to find out my values. My values mean so much in our work life, in our normal life, everywhere. So definitely find out what values you want to live by. But she also helped me find my strengths, my weaknesses, what makes me happy, what makes me excited. So all of that made me closer to my purpose. And at some point, I decided what I want to spend my life with is to make people happy at work. I just did not, I was not happy at a very wonderful work that was looking great on paper, but I wasn't happy. So I wanted to use my skills and my strength and my values. And I thought like, okay, this is what I want to do. And at the time, this was around 2002, 2003, coaching was picking up. And I decided like, I want to do this with my coaching. And I got training. And why I wanted to do the coaching was that because you never tell people what to do. I never want to do that. With the coaching, you only ask the right questions, you understand people's limiting beliefs, and you can help them understand what they want to do with their lives. But choosing coaching at the time, another moment for me, not cool at all. People were saying, what is that coaching? I hear the coaches on the field, but what are you going to do? Again, so much skepticism. People dismiss what I was trying to do, but I believed in my heart, this is what I want to do. It excited me so much. Until to this day, I'm doing the career coaching because it's so rewarding to do that. Because I was in their places. I can relate to those people who want to find meaning in what they do. But over the years, what happened is like I talked to hundreds of people, and what I'm seeing is like they have so much potential. They have so much strength that they want to share. It wasn't that they were lazy people. It's just like there aren't enough organizations who can embrace these people and tap into this wonderful energy that they have. So that bothered me a lot. Like one client after another, I'm seeing so many people getting to know more about themselves. They kind of know what they want to do and their purpose. But then when they go to find a work like that, there's not too many companies to go to, right? So that made me feel like, okay, let me start another business and think and talk and work with leaders so that they create these wonderful environments so that they can hire these clients I have. And I started my purposeful business in 2012 just to do that. And again, when I was choosing my business name, people said, don't ever call it purpose. What is purpose? Nobody cares about that. Not cool at all moment again. But I said, no. Why? Because I spent 2 years looking at companies around the world who are doing well, not only financially, but also making their people happy. People somehow love to go to work. They did not hate their Mondays. And looking at all those businesses, I found two things, two common denominators in all of them, still to this day. They had a purpose beyond profit. So their only work and their only goal was not to maximize profit. And the second thing they had is they had a caring leader, a leader who wants to put people first before profit. That's why I always knew it intuitively that purpose, having a purpose to work in our lives, in our like work environment really meant something because I experienced it myself. I worked at a job that I didn't care so much. And I also had now this business that I cared so much. And I saw how my energy level changed even, right? I work so much better when I love what I do. So that's why I started my business to do that. I'm working with the leaders because now I can have a much bigger impact. And if they understand this concept of creating cultures based on purpose, then they will be able to impact so many people, not only the people who are working at that company, but all their families, right? We're people with families, with loved ones, with spouses. So every time we go back to home, we bring our happiness from work home or our frustration from home. So that's what I did. And all this journey, like I said before, starting with the beginning, where I had no idea what to do with my life, until this day, kept me very resilient. And I adapted based on what is needed that day. That's why I changed and started a new business, because after doing my first business and talking to clients, I said, we have another need in the world. The leaders need to understand what they're doing, right? All the resilience and adaptability that I felt like coming from what I chose to do with my life. It came from my purpose. And in the pandemic, especially because it's so close to today, I was getting up every morning and had something to do, and I felt grateful for that. So when I didn't have clients, I had to maybe speak about it. Maybe I wrote something about this. Sometimes I had clients. Sometimes I was able to coach and consult. But no matter what I chose, the bottom line was I have something to do every single day, which kept me resilient. So that's why I really believe that it helps us to be stronger and tougher. And it doesn't need to be the most glamorous headline purpose that we have, but something that matters to us. And I'm going to say what I mean by individual purpose, and then we're going to do some exercise together. What I believe over the years that I work with purpose and with people is that individual purpose really means like bringing our values, our strengths, our gifts, what makes us excited, and our passion in a way that matters to us, to our hearts. And if it touches one more being, that's amazing. If it touches one more person, or you want to maybe like save a species, some animals in the world, or you want to save the forests of this world, or maybe it's not even paid work. You're a grandma who wants to make sure that you help your grandchild live in a better world. All of that gives us purpose. And it doesn't even have to be a living thing. Over time, I realized some people want to be like protecting the historical buildings in their city. That's what gives you a purpose too. But it gives us resilience for sure. So that's what I mean by individual purpose. So before we move on to organizations, I have a question for you. And Ellen, if you can help us make sure that we stay in the 5-minute zone. And I would love you to share in the chat, what kept you resilient during the pandemic? What did you hold on to? And please don't try to tie it into purpose, because that's our topic. Just think about what kept you resilient during the pandemic. And if you can't think about the pandemic, but something else that you went through in life, it could be about that too. What keeps you resilient? Let's answer that. Put it in the chat, or if you want to say something, you can raise your hand through Zoom, and we can have time for a couple of people to even share it out loud too. What keeps you resilient? Thank you, Ellen, for putting that there. Spending time in nature, definitely. Connecting closely and frequently with neighbors, friends, local essential workers, saying thank you to them every day. I love that. Exercise, being actively engaged with others, slowing down and exercise. I wrote my book and turned leadership of my company over to my key employees, who was the same age as my son. Kept me resilient, but it kept me inspired, thinking I could create something that would benefit younger generations. Thank you, Delinda. And I'm reading your book, by the way. Thanks for being here. And it just is a great example, great story, by the way. Please share your book's name too here, Delinda, if you can, in the chat. That will be great, because it's an amazing, inspirational book about what you did during the pandemic. Great, really. Taking every day with my brother with Down syndrome and my 94-year-old. Oh my God, that's great. Yes, animals. So I think all of that really means like We find resilience in things that support us, things that matter to us. What are the things that you have listed there? Your family, your friends, nature, animals, inspiration that you want to give out to others, right? It's really things that matter to us and slowing down. And I think that happened a lot during the pandemic. We want to get over that like wheel that we're all on. And I think people will never get there anymore, ever again. That's why people resist to go back to work and do the same things, right? Observing plants in nature and birds that kept going beside the pandemic. That's so true. It happened to me too, Nuria. Like I saw some animals in our backyard, which I never saw before because we never stopped and looked around. And I was at home. I was more looking through my window on what's happening out there. It's just so true. I love everything that you shared. Yes. So nature and everything that we had time to do, our families, that gives us resilience, right? So we should never forget that. And at the end, when I'm talking about some of the actions we can take, we're going to go back to these things. But thank you for all the sharing. Thank you. Yes, thank you, everyone. So I wanted to stop there because I think we all have our different ways of being and staying resilient. And for the next thing that's going to happen, and hopefully not a big pandemic like this, I think it's going to help us to remember what really keeps us adaptable and resilient in the hardest of times. And giving myself permission to slow right down, definitely. And I think exactly that's what's happening. We see so many people are coming out of their corporate lives because they don't want to go back to that routine, that horrible routine we had, right? So thank you. Thanks for all the sharing. So I'm going to keep on going with what I want to share, but we're going to have time to talk about these later too. So I think as we go into the organizational purpose and how we can keep our organizations resilient and adaptable, I want to start with what I mean by purposeful business. Those of you who know me understand that I don't take that very lightly. Now that we can talk about it and it's not as horrible as this anymore, I feel great. But unfortunately, not everybody is using purposeful business in the right way either. Let me tell you what it means to me after working on this for so many years, 2 decades. First of all, when I do the session with my clients, this is the question we answer. Why would the world be a better place because our organization exists? And if the world seems too grand, you can replace it with, like, why would this be a better place for my stakeholders? Why would this be a better place for my city, my community, my country? Replace it with anything you like, but your organization needs to serve some people and planet problems. That's why I come up with so many different definitions of purposeful business, but one I like the most is really from British Academy. How they define it is like profit from solving people and planet problems, not profit from causing even more people and planet problems. I like that so much because really we are trying to solve some people and planet problems, but we cannot even have more of them, create more of them. And we know that we can create some social impact by giving a big fat check to a charity, to a nonprofit, which is great. I love when companies do that, but it doesn't make you purposeful. It makes you feel like you're doing something good, but it doesn't make you purposeful, because purposeful business means you're doing something with your core business. It's not only creating a statement, but you live by it every single day with every decision you make. That's what I mean by that. So I wanted to start with that. But I am following companies for a long time before they get to my list. And I watched them during the pandemic too. And not even one single purposeful company that I watch for more than 10 years now, like really went bankrupt. None of them did badly during the pandemic. Why? Because they did purpose in such a good way that people stick together. They felt like a community. And Delinda, you are putting it in the chat there. I know what you did during the pandemic with ICE, your company. That's what happens to a lot of purposeful companies, because you're not only co-workers working together, you're like almost a community together working for something big. It's not about only you. In purposeful companies, no matter what you do, you could be an accountant, you could be an engineer, you could be somebody who's coming and doing coding, you could be a janitor in that company. You are not coming to do your repetitive tasks every day. You know you're there for a bigger reason, and that keeps you together as a community, and that keeps you resilient, that keeps you adaptable, because every time something hits the company, like even something huge like a pandemic that none of us were expecting, you just come up with the best ideas to stay strong together. That just isn't the nature of purposeful companies if you did it in the right way, right? So it becomes your competitive advantage as a culture too. Because like when I work with startups too, and they come up with these best ideas, there's amazing technology that you bring, but they will be able to copy that. But it's not easy to copy your culture right away, because you spend so much time and effort into building that. And it's about being people, and it's putting people first. And not every company is doing that, unfortunately, and it becomes your competitive advantage. And I'm just going to read this. There's just one statistics from a 2022 Purpose Under Pressure report. And it says 91% of employees say their company's purpose makes them feel like they're in the right place as we weather ongoing challenges. That's how you feel. You are together in the right place, and you will be able to weather all the challenges, right? And there's so many research and statistics about this these days. So I want to give you a couple of examples from what I have seen during the pandemic, which are very purposeful companies and how they pivoted, how they stayed resilient. So, and I'm going to read some of them because I don't want to ruin their purpose statements. One is Mattel, and you might know it's like a toy company. They do great toys, and they still had the need in the pandemic because people, like children, were staying at home. Parents were still buying toys. But first of all, here's the purpose of Mattel: empower next generation to explore wonder of childhood and reach their potential. That's their purpose, and they live it every day. And do you know what they came up during the pandemic? They said, look at these essential workers everywhere. Let's do thank you hero figures. So they did nurses, doctors, like cashiers, drivers, and they built toys around them. And they sold so many of them. They stayed true to their purpose, and they made these children very excited about being an essential worker. And maybe some of them will turn out to be essential workers when they grow up. I love what they did with that. Another great story, Zappos, of course, is a big conversation around in the steel event that we have. But you know, their purpose is to live and deliver wow. Look at a company who started selling shoes long time ago, but this is their purpose. So I want you to hear it like it doesn't always have to be about your product either. That's sometimes where we're stuck with our mental minds. It has to be about the purpose of the product. No. And I don't know if you heard that, but I think they did one of the best things I've ever heard in my lifetime. So since they have a great customer service department, they opened all their customer service people to any questions from anyone who's feeling lonely to talk about the pandemic or anything. Can you imagine? Like there, everybody was able to call Zappos and say anything they like. They just had a nice conversation with people who called. I mean, that's to me is an amazing pivot from what they were doing because people needed that. Then WD-40, you have heard me talk about them so many times. They're a company in town because I know them so well. I know what they did during the pandemic. Their purpose is to create memorable moments every day. So they're a company who create lubricants for maintenance, but this is like creating amazing memories for people. So they did that. During the pandemic, I watched them doing Zoom calls. People just joined there. They did cooking. People used their talents. They did music. They really created incredible moments, which is their purpose anyways, during the pandemic. And at the end of the pandemic, their engagement rate is still 97%. 98% of their people still say, I'm proud to work for WD-40. That's amazing again. Nothing happened to them, right? They stayed resilient. One more example, then I'm going to ask you the same question. Red Roof is a hotel chain in United States. It's in nobody's radar, but they always say hospitality starts in the heart. And what they realized during the pandemic is that some remote workers need offices or they need some quiet space to work. So they rented their rooms for as low as $29 a night so that some remote workers can go and work in their rooms. So they pivoted just like that. I feel like all these stories are amazing. There is so many more of them. I shared them, just FYI. I don't always update it anymore, but on Facebook, there's Purposeful Business page. So I shared every single story that I was able to find during the pandemic there. And I also started a YouTube channel during the pandemic, doing interviews with these amazing CEOs and founders. And I can always share that with you if you connect with me after this session too. Amazing inspirational stories. So I'm a big believer, obviously, that when you are true to your purpose, you can ask a big question. And that question to me is this: what does the world need from me, from my team, from my organization right now? Right? This is what we need to talk. And Frederick and Reinventing Organizational book always talks about that. It's evolutionary purpose. You don't have to change your purpose, but how can you use your purpose in the best way with the needs of the world right now? And all these examples that I told you did exactly that. So my question right now is to you: what organizations did you observe during the pandemic that stayed resilient and adaptable? And why do you think so? Let's share that, if you don't mind, again in the chat. And of course, if you want to raise your hand and speak, that's perfect too. Think about some of the ones that you admired and stayed resilient. And it could be your company too. Delinda, I know you have this great story. So I know that you have a great example from your own, but maybe some of you observed others too. Linda, you want to say something? Please.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my story.
Please.
In 2019, I was trying to figure out why my company that I started in 2006 from a spare bedroom had such remarkable revenue growth from 2014 to 2020, which is 7 years. We were on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in America, and only 1.5% of US corporations have been on that list 7 times. And I just couldn't figure out what it was that we were doing, because there was really nothing special about our company. And we didn't even have a differentiating product line, sell office furniture. So you can imagine in 2020, sales plummeted. We did not make the fastest growing list until in 2021, because our sales were so low in 2020, and we still haven't completely recovered, but we didn't lay off one employee. And that was a corporate effort that if we couldn't sell more furniture, we needed to lose less money. So we reduced our errors, and we kept, by crook and nook, we kept everybody on board throughout the pandemic. And when business, came back in 2021, because that was our purpose, the company just did very well. And our brand in San Diego, I'm in San Diego, California, our brand of being a purposeful company has really helped our company attract talent. A lot of our competitors, they treated people very poorly. One competitor reduced their pay by 50%. And I was a single mom for most of my son's life. And I couldn't even imagine these poor moms that are struggling, or single parent fathers too, struggling. How do you take a 50% hit and pay your mortgage? I mean, it was just awful. Yeah. So that's where purpose really helped pull our company together.
Yes. And I know the whole story. And just like, if you pay attention to the book, like behind Delinda, I totally love for all of you to read that, because it's a great story, not only about the pandemic and what they did, but what they did beforehand helped them stay resilient and adaptable. That's the whole thing, right? That's why everybody that I saw during the pandemic did well, because they were already doing well beforehand, right? So I know that we have 15 minutes. So if any other companies that you admire comes to your mind, please put it in the chat, and I'll just wrap it up in 5 minutes so that we can have more questions if you have them too. So I think we made a point about what is the common denominator for them to stay resilient, but also it's all the other things that Teal is teaching us, right? So it's being whole, and it's also being self-organized, self-managed. And I had this crazy thing that happened in my home country, devastating earthquake, one of the worst disasters of our times, unfortunately. And it's all playing out even there too. Nobody's talking about Teal in the middle of a disaster, but I'm watching. I was preparing for this talk, and I'm, of course, devastated for my people, but I'm also seeing what's happening there too. So as soon as the earthquake happened, and we lost more than 50,000 people, and I think the number is bigger, but they were gonna not say the right numbers, unfortunately. But I saw how people found purpose in what they did immediately. So people who are in the IT business came together. They built these wonderful websites so that people, the victims of this earthquake, can find anything they need. So they put their expertise, their strengths, and their love into doing something purposeful, because you don't feel any meaning in what you do in the middle of a devastating earthquake, when people stay homeless, they left everything, they lost their families, everything. It's crazy, but that's what people do immediately. It's in us. It makes us people to be doing these things. I was always follow these boutique hotels back in Turkey, wonderful. And their purpose was saying okay, come to our hotels because we will make you feel at home. And do you know what they did? They opened their rooms for people now who are homeless because they lost their homes in the earthquake, and they're feeding them. They gave them these rooms to live in. They found a purpose in so that they can help these people who are devastated. And then I was looking at restaurants in my hometown, Istanbul. They closed their doors, went to the other side of Turkey where this earthquake happened, and started cooking for these people who have nothing left. They don't have food, they don't have jobs, they have nothing. So all of that purpose shift in what they do for something that matters, it was really unbelievable to watch. And if you think about the other concepts of Teal, like wholeness, you have to make sure that people there bring their whole self to work. Anybody who employs Turkish people now, here in Turkey, everywhere, have to give them space. All of our hearts are heavy, and you can't expect us to be 100% productive. That's not human. We have to embrace that. And if you look at the self-management part of Teal, again, I saw it firsthand. From the first day on, people got organized to help people who are devastated. They got staff organized to cook for them, to find homes for them, to find jobs for them. So they pivoted their purpose to that. I'm always about work and making people happy at work. I got to pivot my work so that people can find work in this devastation. People are jobless. People are homeless. People have lost everything. That's what we need to do, pivot what we do based on our purpose. And all the elements of teal is working in play right now, believe it or not. Do they do it because they believe in teal? No, they do it because this is being human. Teal are the only concepts, not the only concepts, but one of the three main components of being human. And it's in the play out in a huge, big disaster like we're living in my country. So I wanted to point that out. Even if we never call it the name, even if we're not even conscious of it, it is being human to work on these three pieces of the teal. So I wanted to say that, but also wanted to say before I open it up for everyone is that like what keeps us resilient and what keeps us adaptable are these purpose, this self-management, this wholeness that we bring to this world. And what we can do to prepare for it is to remember, like the first question I asked you, what kept you resilient during the pandemic? Make a database in your organization of what kept you resilient for everyone. It should be a group exercise. You put it in there so that you can use it next time and even build up on that. Just do that as an exercise. Or what made you adaptable? What did you do as an individual or as an organization to keep you adaptable during the pandemic? Definitely write those things down. Make sure that you have those to just whatever happens next. Hopefully we don't go through a pandemic, but something is going to happen, right? To stay adaptable and resilient, we need to learn from what we have learned from the pandemic or any other challenges that we faced. And then make sure that you make a database of what you can do next. And instead of laying off people at the first day that the pandemic happened, what can you do to stay resilient as a company? What did you do during the pandemic that you can put in your database of what to do next when the next challenge hits you? So make sure that you make this available and talk to your people. Talk to people who were able to stay resilient. Talk to, like Delinda was saying, people who were able to go stronger, get stronger because of the pandemic. So those are the things that we need, and co-create these plans. And instead of forecast, play the scenarios of what you can do. So I think like all of these actions are very important to take before the next big thing hits us as human beings or in the world, right? And those not cool at all moments make us more resilient. So let's think about those things, what we learned from the pandemic, so that we are again resilient next time something hits us, right? So those are the things that I wanted to leave you with. And just to make sure that we can resilient, we have to make those lessons that we learned very live, and even make some meetings that you get together and everybody shares what kept them resilient during the pandemic, so that we can all learn from that. That's what I want to leave you with. And one last thing before I open up for any questions is like, it's much harder to be defeated when you're passionate and purposeful about your journey. It really is. Every day when I woke up during the pandemic, I was able to stay strong. Every company that I have followed, that I turned to be, I saw that are purposeful, were able to stay strong, and they did not like fire their people. They just wanted to find the solutions together because they had that culture already, and it really helps us to stay stronger together too. So I don't want to take all our time, and make sure that we have time for any questions that you want to ask from everything that we shared today, and see what you have as questions to me or anybody in this group, actually.
Thank you very much, Brooke.
Of course.
So I felt we had a very interactive proposal of a session, and thank you very much, and also opening up the possibility of other people sharing. So very generous, and
Yes.
thank you. So maybe before we open to other experiences or examples, any clarifying questions that we would like to explore with Brooke? We've got 7 minutes, so not much. So maybe we'll tackle the clarifying questions first.
Mm-hmm.
So I had proposed a Mentimeter, but we're not many people. So if you just want to raise your hand or open your mic, and we'll receive those questions, or at least one person. If not, I've got one question myself.
Yes.
No,
any
I don't
questions
see.
or any thoughts of what you
Okay.
heard? Yes.
Nuria, I think, has something to share,
Yes,
maybe related
please,
to what she
Nuria.
wrote.
Hi, Brooke. As
Hi,
always,
hi, Nuria.
as always, I'm inspired. I love to listen to you, to your stories, and I'm always. I wonder how you answer when you talk to somebody and say that, for instance, okay, those companies are different, but this purpose things doesn't go with us, or that's impossible, or yes, we don't believe really on that. So it's how do you answer them? What is it's just how do you offer them? Because obviously these examples you gave us, for me, is clear, but even given these examples, people don't even question that it is possible. So what do you tell those people?
First of all, in my first years when I started my purposeful business, I was more trying to do convincing. But over time, I realized not everybody is ready to do this. So I stopped trying to convince. All I can do is stay strong as a company, make sure that we stand for something besides profit. I always call it purpose beyond profit for that reason. And just to it just really depends, unfortunately, at the people at the top. That's why when I started my purposeful business, it has to start with the people at the top. Yes, you can put pressure from the people that are not in the C-level, or people who really want to find purpose in what they did. Like I tried to do it at IBM. I tried and find my own purpose working there, but it did not go and trickle upwards. So I would say, if they don't believe that purpose really works for them, or it doesn't take them to the right place, convincing does not work. That's why I feel like the two elements that needs to be there is that you have a very people-oriented leader at the top, and then you always need a purpose, a beyond profit, and a group that will be excited to work with you. So the most purposeful companies, like the ones that I mentioned here, gave examples, they inspire people with their purpose. That's why people want to work with them. And sometimes people leave them because they don't really do not really fit in or match with the purpose of the company. And that's okay too. And they let them go because you want to give them the freedom to go and do what they think it is. So purpose is not going to work for everyone, for every company. And if the top people don't understand the benefits of it, I don't think it works. And since we're at Teal organizations right now, in the Teal workshop right now, you can all remember all the different consciousness levels of the companies that Frederick talks about. Some are in the green, some in the orange. But if you're not in the teal zone, you don't care about purpose anyways. It needs a different consciousness level. And if they're not there, there's no way to teach them how to be purposeful, or you can't force them to be purposeful, is what I'm thinking. You just let them go, and it's a consciousness level. And that's what I would say. You can't beat them to it and to force them to it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Brooke. So
Sure.
I'm mindful of the time, and I just wanted to paste the contact details of Brooke if you want to get in contact with her. I see that some of you know her like I do, which is always a pleasure. And also share with you the link of, we can continue the conversation, and that's invitation after this session to go to Spatial Chat. And I'll put that link also in the chat room. So we've got a couple of minutes on my side. Thank you, Brooke, again. And thank you, all of you, for being here. And maybe any last message that you want to share, Brooke, before we can head over there to Spatial Chat, whoever wants to.
Sure. I think it's just like, this is really a consciousness level, like everything else at Teal. So if you don't find yourself ready for it, that's okay. But even to be curious about this is, I think, very important, because like Frederick says, like there's so many different stages that we are all in, and it's okay to be wherever you are. But if you're questioning it, and if you paid the money or take the time to be here, you're obviously at a different place than many, or the majority of the people. So just keep on asking the right questions to yourself, to people around you. And then like, we're just going to get there when we get there. And it's just a journey. It's not just only a destination. And just be curious. That's what I would really advise. And it's much harder to be like defeated when you're passionate and purposeful about your journey. So keep on being in the journey and figuring out who you want to be in this world, and all of it is okay. Just, you can't just force it. That's all I want to say. But I want to thank everyone for being here. It's just a journey and not only a destination. That's what I want to leave you with. But thank you for being here, and you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, anywhere you like. Let's push the envelope more for everybody in this earth. And wherever you are, that's what I want to leave you with. But thank you so much for being in this session with me. Thank you.